I should have walked away the moment I saw her. Not paused. Not looked twice. Not stayed long enough for curiosity to turn into interest. Because everything in me, every instinct I had trained, sharpened, and relied on for years, told me the same thing. This woman will ruin you. Not metaphorically. Not eventually. Completely. And the worst part, it didn't feel like danger. It felt like inevitability. My name is Damian Halley, and I don't believe in accidents. Everything in my life has been deliberate, measured, controlled. I fix problems, the kind that never make headlines. The kind powerful families bury under layers of money and silence. The kind that disappear without leaving a trace. And in my line of work, control is everything. Lose control once and everything falls apart. That's why I don't drink too much. I don't trust easily, and I don't get emotionally involved. Because emotions are where men like me make mistakes. For 31 years, I didn't make any until her. The party was hosted in a Manhattan glass tower, 34 floors above the city, high enough that the noise of real life couldn't reach it. Inside, everything was curated. Old money pretending to respect new money pretending to understand old money, and everyone pretending they weren't negotiating something beneath the surface. Champagne moved like currency. Conversations carried weight, and every smile meant something. I was there because I was useful. That's how men like me get invited. Not because we belong, because we solve things no one else can. I had already mapped my exit. 3 routes, 2 backup options, 1 clean departure. I was leaving until I need that air. The rooftop door opened quietly, and the city hit me all at once. Wind, lights, distance, and her. She stood at the edge, barefoot, shoes dangling from her hand, like gravity didn't apply to her. She didn't turn. "Whatever you're about to say," she said, "say it quickly and go back inside." I wasn't planning to say anything. A pausi. Men always say that. Then they usually haven't finished thinking. That's when she turned, and everything shifted. She wasn't soft. She wasn't inviting. She wasn't safe. She was the kind of woman that made you aware of yourself. Every flaw, every hesitation, every weakness you thought you had hidden. Her eyes locked onto mine. Sharp, calculating, unapologetically aware. "You're Damian Halley." Not a question, a statement. She knew who I was before I spoke, before I explained, before I had control of a situation. And that was the moment I should have left. But I didn't. "My father is downstairs," she said, "negotiating my future like it's a corporate merger." Her voice didn't break, didn't hesitate, didn't soften, but something underneath it felt like pressure, like something contained, like something waiting. "And I'm up here," she continued, "because if I stay in that room, I will destroy everything." I studied her, not the words, the delivery, because people say things like that all the time, but they don't mean them. She did. We didn't speak after that. Not immediately, because something had already started. Not loud, not obvious, but real. 2 people standing on the edge of something neither of us understood yet. "You're not going back inside," I said. "No." "Why?" "Because I don't negotiate with people who think they own me. And yet, you showed up." A pausi. Then, "Sometimes," she said quietly, "you have to walk into the room to understand how to burn it." That line stayed with me, because it wasn't emotional. It was strategic. And that made her dangerous. If I had left that night, this would have ended before it began. but I didn't. And that was the beginning of everything 11 days later. She called me, not through an assistant, not through a company line, not through anything traceable. Directly, on a number only 3 people had. And when I saw her name on my screen, something shifted. Not curiosity, not caution, expectation. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered. "You took your time," she said. Her voice was sharper now, less guarded. "Mari, deliberate. I wanted to be sure it was really you." "Ah, Pawsy, you were already sure." She was right. Of course she was. "My father is arranging a marriage," she said. "No build-up, no hesitation, no emotion, just fact." "To who?" I asked. "Victor Kane." The name carried weight. Men like Victor Kane didn't introduce themselves. They arrived, and everything around them adjusted. Private equity, political reach, influence that didn't need explanation. "And what do you want me to do?" I asked. A pause. Measured. Intentional. "Then I want you to remove him from the equation." That was the moment everything changed. Because this wasn't business anymore. It wasn't clean. It wasn't distant. It wasn't neutral. This was personal. And I hadn't noticed when it became that. "I don't take jobs without full context," I said. "You will," she replied. That made me pause. "Why?" "Because you've already decided you're going to help me." Silence. And the problem. She wasn't guessing. She was right. That should have been my warning. Because she wasn't asking for help. She was pulling me in. And once you were inside her world, you didn't leave the same. Victor Kane did make mistakes. Men like him erased them. Which meant I had to look where no one else did. Patterns, discrepancies, movements that didn't match narratives, financial structures layered beneath other structures, shell companies hidden behind trust funds, deals buried inside acquisitions. I worked for 48 hours straight, no sleep, no distractions, no mistakes. And then I found something. Not obvious, not explosive, but dangerous. A thread. And if pulled correctly, it could unravel everything. I called her. "You didn't tell me everything," I said. "I told you enough." "No," I replied. "You told me what you wanted me to know." Silence. "Then, what did you find?" she asked. "No denial. New resistance." She adapted. Fast. "He's not just controlling the deal," I said. "He's controlling your father." "Ah, Pawsy. How?" she asked. And there it was. The first crack. Not in her voice. In her certainty. "He owns leverage your father can't afford to expose," I said. Silence. "Then of course he does. But this, Chimi, it didn't sound like control. It sounded like understanding." We didn't hang up. That was new. Usually, conversations like this ended quickly. Efficient. Clean. But this one didn't. "You ever get tired?" she asked. "Tired of what?" "Being in control all the time." I leaned back. "All the time." "Then why don't you stop?" "Because things fall apart when I do." Pawsy? "Then maybe some things are supposed to fall apart." "Damien?" she said after a moment. "Yes. If this goes wrong, it won't. You don't know that. I know how I work." Pawsy? "Then that's not what I'm asking." Silence. "What are you asking?" I said. "If this goes wrong, do you walk away?" That question hit differently. Not strategic, not professional. Personal. I didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was complicated. I don't know, I said. Another pause. Then, neither do I, she replied. And for the first time, we were both uncertain. That was the shift. Not the jobby. Not the dangerous. Because now there was something to lose. Over the next 17 days, we spoke every night. At first strategy, planning, execution. Then, slowly, something else. She told me about growing up in rooms where she was expected to listen, not speak. I told her about learning early that silence could be power. She told me about being treated like an asset. I told her about becoming one by choice. And somewhere between those conversations, something shifted. That was the problem with her. She didn't just talk. She made you feel things you had spent years avoiding. And once that started, you couldn't stop it. Everything accelerated. Victor Kane moved the timeline forward. The engagement wasn't private anymore. It was public announced. Locked. Irreversible. I called her immediately. He's moving faster, I said. I know. That stopped me. You know. Yes. How? Silence. Then, because I met him today, my chest tightened. And a pause. Then he told me I don't have a choice anymore. There's a moment when something stops being professional and becomes personal. No announcement, new warning, no clear shift you can point to. Just a quiet realization. Unsuddenly, you're no longer thinking clearly. That moment, for me, was the night she stopped sounding untouchable. I called her the second the line went dead. New hesitation. No calculation. Just instinct. She answered on the third ring. Isabella, I said. A pause. I'm here. But something had changed. Not in the words, in the weight behind them. The control was still there, but it wasn't absolute anymore. What happened? I asked. He moved the date. How soon? 5 days. My jaw tightened. That's not negotiation. I know. That's control. Yes, and your father. Silence. Then he agreed. That was the moment everything shifted. We weren't planning anymore. We were reacting. And reacting meant losing control. I don't have a choice, Damien, she said quietly. Yes, you do. No, this time I don't. You always have a choice. A pause. Then, what if every choice leads to the same ending? That question wasn't fear. It was exhaustion. I'm coming to see you, I said. No, I'm not asking. Damien, I said I'm coming. Silence. Then. Fine. And just like that, we crossed a line. Her building was quiet. Too quiet. Private. Controlled. Secure. But inside, it felt different. Less curated. Mori Hiao. She opened the door herself. And for the first time, she didn't look untouchable. She looked human. We stood there. No strategy. No control. Just recognition. Then she stepped aside. Call me in. The apartment told a different story than the rooftop. Books stacked unevenly. A glass of wine untouched. Lights dimmed. Not for effect, but for comfort. This wasn't the version of her people saw. This was the version she didn't show anyone. 5 days, I said. Yes! You're not doing this, she looked at me. And this time, there was no performance. I don't know how to stop it. That sentence landed harder than anything else because it was real. You don't have to do it alone, I said. I've always done everything alone. Then stop. She let out a slow breath. You make it sound simple. It's not. Then why do you sound so sure? Because I'm not walking away. Silence. And then something changed. She stepped closer. Not impulsively, not emotionally, deliberately. Why? She asked. That question demanded honesty, and honesty was something I controlled carefully. But this me. I didn't, because I care about you. A pausi. That's dangerous. I know. And you're still saying it? Yes. She studied me. Not my words. My intent. Like she was deciding whether I meant it, or whether I was just another man saying something he didn't understand. Then I don't want you to stop, she said. And just like that, everything changed. What followed wasn't slow. It wasn't cautious. It wasn't safe. We didn't ease into anything. We fell. Conversations stretched longer. Silences became comfortable. Distance disappeared. We stopped pretending this was about strategy, because it wasn't anymore. One night, she didn't call to talk about the plan. She just stayed on the line. You're quiet, I said. So are you. I'm thinking. About what? A pause. Then, what happens when this is over? That question lingered, because it wasn't about strategy. It was about us. I don't know, I said. Another pause. Then, that's the first honest answer you've given me, she said softly. And for some reason, that mattered. That was the problem, not the situation, not the risk. Her, because she made everything feel necessary. But reality didn't disappear. Victor Kane still existed. The wedding was still approaching. The pressure was still closing in. And the closer we got, the more fragile everything became. 2 nights later, she didn't answer. First, call. Second, third, nothing. Then a message. We need to be careful. That was it. No explanation. New context. Just distance. Something about that message felt wrong. Not the words, the space. Because just days ago, there was no space. And now there was distance, and I didn't know why. The next morning, I found out she wasn't avoiding me. She was with him, Victor Kane. And suddenly, this wasn't about saving her anymore. It was about losing her. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't take calls. I didn't check messages, because there was only one thing on my mind. Her, and the fact that she had spent the night with him. I told myself it didn't mean anything. That it was strategy. That it was survival. That it was necessary. But something in me refused to accept that, because I knew men like Victor Kane. They didn't meet women. They positioned them. They didn't build relationships. They built leverage. And the thought of her being anywhere inside that system felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't call her immediately, because calling meant reacting, and reacting meant losing control. So I waited 1 hour, 2, 3, until finally my phone lit up. Her name! I answered instantly. You shouldn't have called me last night, she said. New greeting, new warmth, new hesitation, just distance. That's not what this is about, I said. Then what is it about? You were with him. Silence. And that silence confirmed everything. Yes, she said one word. Calm, controlled, unapologetic. My jaw tightened. Why? A pause. Because I needed to be. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. That was the moment I realized something dangerous. She wasn't pulling away. She was stepping into something bigger, something calculated. And I didn't know where I stood anymore. I need you to trust me, she said, that word again. Trust. You disappear, I said, and come back asking for trust. Yes. Why? A pause. Then, because I'm about to end this, my chest tightened. What does that mean? It means I'm not reacting anymore. I'm controlling it. That's when everything became clear. This wasn't about escape anymore. This was about control. And she was stepping into it completely. You're going after him directly, I said. Yes. That's not strategy. It is now. That's war. A pause. Then. Exactly. Every instinct I had told me to stop her, pull her back, slow things down, control the damage. But I didn't, because somewhere along the way, this stopped being about logic and started being about her. Then we do it properly, I said. Silence? Then you're still with me, she asked. Yes, a pause. And for the first time, her voice softened. Not weak, not uncertain. Relieved we met that night. Not at her apartment, not anywhere obvious. A private office. Glass walls. City lights surrounding us. She was already there, standing by the window, looking out over Manhattan, just like the first night I saw her. But this Chimi, she wasn't standing at the edge. She was standing like she owned it. You look different, I said. I am. No hesitation, no explanation. What happened last night? I asked. She turned slowly, and there it was. Not fear, not pressure, not uncertainty. Power. I gave him what he wanted, she said. My chest tightened. And what was that? A version of me he believes he can control. Silence. And can he? I asked. A faint smile. No. That was the moment everything clicked. She hadn't been losing control. She had been performing it. And that was far more dangerous. He thinks I've accepted everything, she said. The engagement, the timeline, the outcome. And you haven't? No. Then what are you doing? I'm getting close enough to see everything. Every weakness, every hidden structure, every assumption he's making. And when he's comfortable, I take everything. There's something else, she said. What? He's watching you. That made me pause. How closely? Close enough to know you're involved. Silence. And what does that mean? I asked. It means you're no longer outside this. That shifted everything. Because now, this wasn't just a risk. It was mine too. You should have told me, I said. I just did. That's not the same. No, she said quietly. It's not. Silence. Then, do you want out? She asked. That question lingered. Because this time, it wasn't theoretical. It was real. I looked at her, at the woman who had disrupted everything I had built, and without hesitation, no. A pause. Then neither do I, she said. After this, she said quietly, nothing goes back to normal. I know in us. A pause. Then, there is no normal for us, and somehow, that didn't feel like a loss. It felt like truth. 2 days later, everything moved. Announcements, press coverage, public confirmation. The engagement was no longer private. It was official. And that was exactly what she wanted. Because, while everyone believed she was walking into a trap, She was building one, and this time, no one was going to see it coming. The wedding was in 48 hours, and nobody in that room understood. They were walking into something that had already been decided. Everything was flawless, exactly how Victor Kane wanted it. The venue, the guest list, the press, the timing. It wasn't just a wedding. It was a statement. Power, control, ownership. And at the center of it all was her, Isabella Laurent, calm, composed, untouchable. At least, that's what everyone believed. But I knew something they didn't. This wasn't a ceremony. It was a collapse. And she was the one pulling the strings. I saw her the night before. No guards. No noise. No distractions. Just ooze. You're sure about this? I asked. Yes. No hesitation. A pause. Then I stopped hesitating when I realized what he really was. I studied her, not her words. Her calm. Because calm like that didn't come from confidence. It came from certainty. This doesn't end clean, I said. I know. Someone gets hurt. Yes. And if it's you, she held my gaze. It won't be. Silence. Then, what about us? I asked. That question carried weight, because, for the first time, this wasn't about the plan. It was about what survived it. She didn't answer immediately, and that hesitation meant everything. We were never meant to be safe, she said quietly. My chest tightened. That's not what I asked. I know. Then answer me. Allons pause. Then, if we survive this, we decide what we are after. Not certainty. Not reassurance. Just truth. And somehow, that felt more real than anything else. The next day, everything accelerated. Black cars lined the entrance. Security doubled. Guests filled the venue. Old Maine. Political power. Corporate influence. All gathered in one place. Because this wasn't just a wedding. It was a convergence of power. And no one realized it was about to collapse. The ceremony began slowly. Music soft. Voices lowered. Eyes turned forward. Victor Kane stood beside her. Confident. Certain. Untouchable. Because men like him always believed they were. Then she moved. Small. Precise. Controlled. A signal. So subtle. No one noticed it, except me. And within seconds, everything shifted. Phones started vibrating. One then another. Then dozens. Whispers spread. Confusion. Concern. Shock. Because something had just been released. Not rumors. Not speculation. Evidence. Financial records. Offshore accounts. Illegal transfers. Hidden partnerships. Everything Victor Kane had spent years burying was now exposed, and it was spreading faster than anyone could stop it. You think this changes anything? He said. But his voice wasn't steady anymore. She stepped forward, and for the first time, there was no performance, no mask, just truth. It changes everything, she said. Silence filled the room. Then you built your power on silence, she continued. On secrets. On people being too afraid to look closer. A pause. Then, and today, everyone is looking. Security moved in. Authorities followed. Phones kept ringing. Messages kept spreading. The room fractured. And just like that, he wasn't untouchable anymore. He was exposed. An exposure was worse than destruction because it left nothing hidden. Hours later, the city hadn't stopped talking. News spread. Faster than control. Faster than damage control. The wedding never happened. The empire he built collapsed in a single day, and she walked away untouched. I found her later that night. No crowd. No cameras. No noise. Just silence. "You did it," I said. "Yes." "And now?" She looked at me. And this time, there was nothing hidden. No control. No distance. No calculation. Just truth. "Now I choose," she said. My chest tightened. "Choose what?" "A palsy." "Then, what happens next?" I stepped closer. "And us." "Us." She held my gaze. And for the first time, she didn't calculate. She didn't deflect. She didn't control the moment. She just answered. "We'll never be safe." "I know." "We'll never be simple." "I know." "A palsy." "Then but we'll be real." Somehow. That was enough. If you ask me what love is, I won't tell you. It's soft. I won't tell you it's easy. And I definitely won't tell you it's safe. Because sometimes love is the fire that burns everything you built. And sometimes it's the only thing worth what's left.